That's what we said. Hear what we'll say. Have a good day. Boo-hoo.
Welcome to That's What We Said,
where we decide if a movie is a flop or a bop.
Today our hosts are Lauren
Marina
and Manu.
and we're going to talk about our views on the movie Vertigo.
First of all, the movie Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, was released in 1958. In the beginning of the movie, we follow the main character, Detective John Ferguson, or Scotty, portrayed by James Stewart, while he chases a bandit through San Francisco's rooftops. He then witnesses the fall of a fellow officer, which is where his fear of heights, or acrophobia, comes into play.
After a little time has passed, we now know that the main character has retired from the police force. Even though he continually tries to get over his fear of heights, it is shown that he is unsuccessful. Vertigo is a sensation when you're in a high place and you feel like you're going to fall, hence the name of the movie.
The detective gets a call from an old friend who asks to meet up, and he gladly accepts. As the reunion goes by, his friend, Gavin Elster, played by Tom Helmore, admits he needs help from Scotty. He claims his wife is possessed by the spirits of her great-grandmother, Carlotta Vouges.
Elster tells Scotty that Carlotta has committed suicide at 26, the same age as his current wife. Now, Scotty has retired from the force, but he is intrigued. This case seems crazy, or is that his friend is delusional, but he accepts.
After, we see the detective following Elster's wife, Madeline Elster, played by Kim Novak. As she goes on with her normal day-to-day activities, he follows her throughout the day, and at one point, he follows her under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Scotty didn't take his eyes off the blonde woman, examining her every move. A few minutes pass, and Madeline throws herself into the San Francisco Bay. Scotty dives in to rescue her, while she is unconscious, and drives her back to his house. As the hours have passed, Madeline wakes up and goes into the living room to find the men waiting for her.
Scotty explains to Madeline what had happened, and she tells him she doesn't remember anything. While they talk, feeling starts to arise, and while in that state, the phone rings from the other room. Scotty gets up to answer it, and it's the woman's husband asking if he'd seen her since she wasn't home. Scotty answers for her, saying that she is safe, and soon afterwards we hear the front door open, and the woman is not in the home anymore.
The following day, the main character continues following Madeline, and he's surprised as he finds her at the front of his house. She tells him she returned to thank him, and both decide to go around town together.
Madeline starts talking about death, and as if she was possessed. She also relieves her memories from a past life.
And that's where we'll leave it.
Okay, so let's talk about our opinions about Vertigo. I'm going to start with dialogue. I feel like there was a lot of things left unsaid throughout the movie. I feel like this was intended to make the viewer feel more involved, but for me personally, I feel like instead this choice made it harder for me to understand, and I just
agreed.
wasn't confused.
I feel like the whole movie itself, not only the dialogue, but it was also very confusing. Because the ideas were good, but the execution wasn't that great. And it was really confusing if you didn't pay attention to the movie.
I believe that for non-native English speakers, the vocabulary was hard to understand. However, like if you're actually paying attention, you can understand. But I feel like I had a hard time completely grasping what the movie was trying to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like I understood some of the vocabulary because it is old time vocabulary. I remember hearing some of the different things because my grandparents they would use that kind of vocabulary. But I've heard a lot of the things around with friends around us that they just didn't understand what certain words were trying to say because they just never heard them.
Yeah, and for the movie was released in 1958, so that means the vocabulary is from 1958.
Yeah.
So for us in 2025, it's completely different, and most of us don't even use these words and don't even know these words. So it was kind of a challenge to understand some.
Exactly. I also think that the audio wasn't that great. I feel, obviously, it's an older film, so they didn't have as much technology and everything, but I just feel like it was a bit mumbled, and this was pretty annoying in certain parts when you really are trying to understand what's going on, because yeah, exactly, in important parts of the movie it was mumbled, and so you would kind of not you'd even get more confused, not only because of the vocabulary used, but also because of the audio.
Yeah, and sometimes the soundtrack would like interfere with the dialogue, which made it even harder to understand.
Literally.
Yeah. So now let's jump into the acting. So I believe that the actors did a very good job in making the audience feel tension. But I also feel that some parts lacked being more dramatic, and other parts were too dramatic to a point where it seemed fake. So yeah, I think the movie was successful to some extent, but at the same time I feel like it misjudged the amount of drama that some scenes need.
Exactly. I feel like that too, and I also feel like the way that they expressed themselves throughout the movie was like mostly through drastic body motions, and sometimes it needed something more, like a little bit more. I don't know, like eye contact or a different body posture or something, because I feel like in certain times, maybe it's because of the period that it came out, but it was just a little bit off for me. I don't know. It's just the body posture, I feel like.
Yeah, the body language wasn't like. It was really dramatic. It was extremely dramatic.
Super.
And like the way they would act in general, like if the person fell, they would like throw themselves into the ground. And in general, it was very dramatic, but it was good acting, for the most part.
Exactly.
Okay, and now jumping into cinematography and editing. Me personally, I felt like for 1958 movies and film, it was amazing editing.
The transitions.
Like literally everything. The coloring was amazing. The quality was actually really good. The scenes were really good, but the quality for such an old movie was incredible.
Exactly. I really love the scenery that they have too, because it is based in California. No, it's in San Francisco. Yeah, San Francisco, California area.
Yeah.
And so there's like the ocean, there's the Golden State Bridge, there's literally everything.
Yeah, it was very beautiful actually. The scenery.
Agreed.
And also it's worth to mention the camera effects. Because, for example, they use a lot of dolly effects, which is when the camera zooms in, but the person who's filming is also going back, which gives off that vertigo effect, which is basically what the movie asks for. And it was amazing the way they did it.
I like how much they accentuate that fact. Like, you never forget, really, that the guy's kind of scared of heights. They keep on showing that throughout the film. But
they let it very clear that it's a very good, important part of the movie that we really need to understand.
Exactly.
They made it as if that's what the main character was feeling, and that's what thinking, and they made us see what he was thinking. They he was feeling vertigo, and then we were the ones that also had to feel vertigo to be more into the movie. And also, I feel like it's worth to mention the part where he's dreaming. And that editing was amazing. His dream itself.
It's like ahead of its time.
It was. It really was. And the way that the colors were there, and the special effects, honestly.
It was like kind of cartoony out of like, I feel like, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that like, in that time, movies could not be cartoons and real life. And so I feel like that was a cool...
May I just say, I feel like the soundtrack made the movie feel less tense in some sort of way.
It was a little bit more...
Because the music and like the sound effects were too cartoony for me, and they take away from that experience of holding in tension. And I also believe that sometimes when you're trying to make something more authentic and realistic, not having any music makes it even more breathtaking and feels really the sense of it being dangerous and scary.
Exactly. And on the fact of how it looks like, I feel like the car scenes look very artificial and fake, because you can see that there's a green screen behind them, and like obviously a lot of the different things is because of the time period. We keep on talking about that. However, it's still a factor that made it a little bit harder for me to watch, because it's not harder for me to watch, but it's harder for me to enjoy, because I kept on getting reminded of the fact that it is a movie. Like, it's completely all in the
Screen.
on the screen. Because sometimes when you're in a movie, like watching a movie, you feel like you're in the movie,
Yeah.
and you kind of forget
Yeah.
that it's actually a movie.
Yeah, it feels very immersive, and actual like when movies are more careful when using green screens in car scenes, but obviously for the time it's the best they
yeah.
could do. But you can also tell, and I feel like sometimes the actor James Stewart would sometimes put the steering wheel a little bit to the left when the car was going to the right, and they could have been more careful. But overall, it was good cinematography and good editing.
So overall, I think that the movie wasn't.
Would you guys watch it again? I don't think so. I don't think I would ever watch it again. I don't really like
Yeah.
old movies. I like old romances.
Yeah.
Old movies make me bored.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
watch it again, but I think it wasn't. It wasn't very immersive, but I think it was important to watch.
Yes, I agree. Like, I also wouldn't watch it again. Like, I wouldn't mind, but I also wouldn't do it like as a personal want. But I also feel like it's a very important movie to watch because it's a classic. If we're to think about it.
I honestly just think that it's just hard to pay attention throughout
Yes.
the whole time. I feel like it's very
Agreed.
serious.
Yeah, it's hard. Especially for a non-native English speaker, I just feel like I have to use so much of, like I have to pay attention. And although there is the beauty of it, of having to be present and on the moment for you actually to let the movie sink in, although that is very beautiful and like genuine, I prefer movies that you can just watch and you understand. Like,
And like other
Easily.
movies, you still have to pay attention.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah, and
in
for
this
me,
one,
You have to
I
pay more.
way more attention. It feels like an eternity. Like even though it's a 2-hour movie, which is a long time as well, but other movies are 2 hours long, and it doesn't feel as long.
Yeah.
So I
It
feel
goes by really fast with other movies. With this one, it felt forced. You know,
very
Like,
much.
It didn't. It wasn't flowing basically because it literally was like too much information at once.
yeah.
And there was like a lot going on, and you couldn't really catch up, like keep up honestly.
Because there was a lot of different clues and different things for the viewer to be able to wrap up.
Yeah.
But they didn't really wrap up anything.
No, it was more. It wasn't an immersive movie, but it was also more of an interpret movie. Because basically, the viewer had to like. They had to try to understand. The movie didn't, and I think that's honestly a little bit good because it means like, oh, if you're paying attention to the movie, you're gonna understand. But the fact that you have to pay a little more attention makes it a little bit harder to enjoy.
Exactly. I think I also didn't really like how somber it was. And I don't want to focus on how much I don't like it. I really did like like I was saying before, the scenery that we had and the different acting. However, there are some points that they kind of needed to do more or less, because the points that they really didn't need that much, they kind of went overboard, and then the times that they really kind of need something, they were a little bit missing. So yeah, but I feel like the storyline in overall is very interesting. It's very different than other movies that I've ever watched, and I think it's worth a watch, but not like a
Something I
rewatch.
would enjoy. Yeah. Like, I feel like I said, it's a classic movie, you know? Everyone, even if you haven't watched it yet, you might have heard of it, you know? Like, the name is familiar, and it's also a classic from Alfred Hitchcock. And, yeah, like, I also wouldn't rewatch it, but I don't regret watching it.
Yeah, I agree. I think even though sometimes we don't like a movie in general, just watching it is important for you to see what you like and you don't like in a movie, and see like different ways of storytelling. Yeah, and I don't think I would watch it again, but I think it was a very valuable experience.
Exactly. So what do we think it is? Is it a flop or a bop?
I think it's a flop.
I think it's a flop as well.
Yeah, I also think it's a flop.
Okay,
So
it's a flop, guys.
flop!
But if you'd like to watch it, go
Welcome.
ahead.
And that's what we said.
Woo!